Rain hammered the skylights of the Ravenshore Grand Hotel, washing streaks of light across the ballroom glass. Inside, laughter echoed over a sea of tuxedos and diamonds. Photographers hovered like insects, flashes popping as billionaires toasted to charity and hope. Dr. Elara Monroe barely noticed any of it. Her fingers trembled against the champagne flute she hadn't touched. She stood at the edge of the crowd near the marble staircase, scanning faces she didn't belong among. The invitation in her purse felt like a dare, an accident of fate that had dragged her into a world she spent her life working against. Across the hall, the evening's guest of honor took the stage. Victor Langford, the billionaire founder of Langford Biotech, stood tall and silver-haired beneath a rain of golden light. His smile had been polished by decades of cameras. Every movement radiated power, the kind that could build or erase entire cities. "Tonight," Victor said into the microphone, his baritone smooth as glass, "we celebrate the miracle of science and the mercy of those who make it possible." The crowd erupted in applause. Elara's stomach twisted. She'd seen the word mercy carved on too many gravestones to believe it belonged in a billionaire's speech. Victor lifted his glass. "To a future where no one is left behind." And then his hand froze. His face paled, eyes darting unfocused toward the ceiling. The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the stage. A gasp swept the room. Victor clutched his chest. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then chairs screeched back, panic blooming through the hall. Elara didn't think, she ran. The crowd parted instinctively as she climbed the steps to the stage. Victor had collapsed, convulsing weakly on the floor. His expensive watch gleamed beside the shards of crystal. "I'm a doctor!" she shouted. "Someone call emergency services now!" She dropped to her knees, fingers searching his neck for a pulse. Faint, erratic. His lips were already blue. "Move the table," she barked. "I need space." A few assistants hesitated, then scrambled. She loosened his tie, tilted his head, began chest compressions, counting softly under her breath. 1, 2, 3. The band had stopped playing. The sound of her hands pressing into his chest filled the entire ballroom. Someone sobbed near the back. "Bring the defibrillator!" she yelled. A security guard appeared with a bright orange case. Elara snatched it open, hands steady despite her racing heart. She attached the pads to Victor's chest. The machine's voice cut through the silence. Analyzing heart rhythm. "Do not touch the patient." "Come on," she whispered. Shock advised. She pressed the button. Victor's body jolted. Then a strangled breath. The billionaire coughed, sucking in air like it was the first time in years. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused but alive. Applause broke out, shaky and disbelieving. The orchestra started again too soon. Elara sat back on her heels, drenched in sweat. For a second, she felt something she hadn't in months. Hope. But as she looked into Victor's dazed eyes, something flickered there. Gratitude, yes, but also calculation. As though he wasn't seeing the woman who saved him, but the opportunity that had just walked into his story. Outside, sirens wailed closer. "Doctor," a voice said behind her. She turned to see Miles Corrigan, Victor's right-hand man, tall and surgically neat, with an expression like carved steel. "Langford will want to thank you personally once he's stable." "You'll come with us," Elara wanted to protest. She had patients at her clinic in East Ravenshore waiting, but exhaustion made her nod. As paramedics rushed in, the cameras started flashing again. The story was already being written. Unknown doctor saves billionaire at charity gala. If you're watching this right now, take a breath, because what comes next will change everything. And before we dive deeper, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves a good mystery, and subscribe, because this is only the beginning of how mercy turns into madness. The ambulance tore through the rain-soaked streets, siren echoing between the towers. Elara sat opposite Victor, who was half-conscious, oxygen mask fogging with each breath. His eyes locked on her again. "You," he rasped. "Stay." The paramedic frowned. "Sir, you need to—" Victor waved weakly, silencing him. "She stays." Elara stayed. By the time they reached Ravenshore Central Hospital, the media had already gathered outside. Dozens of reporters pressed against the barricades, shouting questions through the storm. Flashbulbs burst like lightning. As the gurney rolled toward the ER doors, Miles stepped beside her again. "You'll come to Langford Tower tomorrow, noon." Mr. Langford insists. Elara started to object, but he was already walking away, coat whipping in the wind. Inside the ER, she filled out forms she didn't need to, answered questions from doctors who didn't believe she'd just saved the city's most powerful man. When she finally stumbled outside, dawn had started to bleed over the skyline. Her hands still shook from adrenaline. Her phone buzzed non-stop, messages, calls, news alerts. Miracle Doctor Revives Victor Langford blazed across every feed. By morning, she couldn't open a single app without seeing her own face. Her small clinic was already surrounded by cameras when she arrived. Her nurse, Rosa, met her at the door, eyes wide. "You're famous," Elara sighed. "God help me." The day blurred by in interviews, phone calls, and people wanting to shake her hand. Donations poured into the clinic's account. By sunset, she'd been offered 3 TV appearances and an honorary award from the city council. It should have felt good. It didn't. When the clock struck noon the next day, a black car waited outside the clinic. The driver opened the door wordlessly. At the top of Langford Tower, glass walls framed the city like a trophy case. Victor Langford sat behind an enormous desk, pale but alive, wearing an oxygen tube and a faint smile. "Elara Monroe," he said, his voice weaker but still commanding. "The woman who stopped time." "I was just doing my job," she said quietly. "You did more than that. You gave me back my heartbeat, and I repay my debts." He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a check, 6 figures. Elara froze. This is too much." Victor leaned back. "Call it an investment. Use it for your clinic. Expand. Save more lives. That's what people like you are meant to do, isn't it?" She hesitated. Something about the way he said "people like you" made her skin prickle. "I can't accept this without understanding why." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because gratitude is the only currency that never devalues." Miles appeared again, silent in the corner. Watching. Always watching. Elara left the tower with the check burning a hole in her purse. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, staring at it. $500,000. Enough to keep her clinic alive for 5 years. Enough to treat every child in East Ravenshore who couldn't afford care. She told herself it was a blessing, a miracle. But in the quiet as thunder rolled outside, she felt it. The faint hum of something darker, like a thread tugging her toward a truth she hadn't asked to find. Before she slept, she whispered to the ceiling, "Mom, if I take this, tell me it's not a mistake." The storm answered with silence. The sun crawled reluctantly over Ravenshore, its light hazy behind a fog that clung to the towers like regret. Elara hadn't slept. The check sat on her counter, the ink glinting whenever the refrigerator light blinked on. She kept expecting it to vanish, like everything good in her life eventually did. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Elara Monroe." A pause. Then Victor's familiar rasp. "How's the conscience, doctor?" Still debating whether mercy deserves payment, she gripped the phone tighter. "You shouldn't be calling. You need rest. I rest when I'm dead. And I already tried that once." He chuckled softly. "Meet me tonight. 7 o'clock. Langford Tower, top floor Y. You'll see." The line went dead. Rosa found her staring at the phone minutes later. "You look like someone's ghost just texted you." "Maybe he did," Elara murmured. All day she tried to focus on patients, the coughing boy who'd been skipping asthma meds to save his mother money, the old man who brought flowers because he couldn't afford payment. But every time she looked at her hands, she remembered how they'd pressed against Victor Langford's chest, dragging him back from the brink. And now somehow she felt owned by that moment. By dusk she couldn't resist curiosity or fear. She rode the elevator to the top of Langford Tower again. The city shimmered beneath her like an expensive lie. The office lights were dim this time, just one lamp illuminating Victor behind his desk. He looked older already, as if dying and living again had cost him something permanent. "Elara," he gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit. I only came because you sounded—" She stopped herself. "Because you asked." He smiled faintly. Honesty. Refreshing. He poured 2 glasses of water, sliding one toward her. "Tell me, do you believe in second chances?" "Sometimes," she said cautiously. He nodded. "Good, because I'd like to offer you one." He pushed a tablet across the table. On the screen, Langford Foundation Humanitarian Fellowship, a new initiative promising to fund clinics in impoverished regions across the world, led by Dr. Elara Monroe. Her pulse quickened. "You want me to run this?" "Front it," he corrected. "Your face, your credibility, our resources. Together we'll cure suffering, or advertise that you do." He didn't flinch. "Cynicism's a poor disguise for fear, Doctor. You have a gift. I have power. Let's not waste either." Before she could answer, the elevator chimed behind them. Miles Corrigan entered, phone pressed to his ear, whispering something that sounded like urgency dipped in poison. He hung up and eyed her with that same clinical detachment. "She's still thinking?" he asked Victor. "I imagine she's deciding whether trust is a currency she can afford," Victor replied softly. Elara rose. "I'll think about it." As she reached the elevator, Miles said, "You should read the papers you signed yesterday before you think about it." She frowned. "What papers?" "The ones attached to that donation check." He smiled thinly. Fine print has a way of revealing truth. That night, sleep refused her again. She dug through her purse, pulling out the donation contract she'd barely skimmed before signing. Lines of dense legal text blurred until one clause jumped out. Recipient Foundation agrees to endorse L Biopharmaceuticals product line, including but not limited to the analgesic Cortizan. Her breath caught. Cortizan. She'd seen that name somewhere. She opened her laptop and typed it in. The first page of search results was all glossy marketing, bright families, smiling doctors, but buried on page 3 were darker headlines. Fatal side effects in South Asia trial. Whistleblower disappears after exposing L Bio data. Her pulse hammered. She clicked an archived news piece with a faded photo of a rural clinic, one she recognized instantly. Her mother had worked there. The caption read, "Pilot test site for early cortisone distribution." Her hand shook so hard she nearly dropped the laptop. The article mentioned unreported fatalities, mislabeled dosages, and corporate cover-ups. Her mother's name wasn't listed, but Elara remembered the night she'd died. The strange seizures, the unexplained collapse. "Cortisone," she whispered. The same drug Victor's company had made fortunes from. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text this time. "Some truths can't be buried, Dr. Monroe. Meet me tomorrow, Pier 19, 8 a.m. Maya Singh." She didn't know the name, but instinct screamed that whoever Maya was, she had answers. Before dawn, Elara walked through fog-drenched docks to Pier 19. Gulls screamed overhead, and cargo cranes loomed like skeletons. A woman waited near the railing, early 40s, trench coat, eyes sharp with exhaustion. "Maya Singh?" Elara asked. The woman nodded. "Investigative journalist. You saved Victor Langford, didn't you?" Elara tensed. "If you're looking for a quote, I'm looking for justice," Maya cut in. "Langford Biotech killed dozens during the Cortizan trials. I've been chasing proof for 3 years. You're my missing piece. I don't understand." "You took his money," Maya said quietly. "That makes you a witness. Maybe even leverage." Elara's stomach twisted. "You want me to go public?" "I want you to tell the truth. I could lose everything." "You already did," Maya said. "You just don't know it yet." A car door slammed behind them. 2 men in black coats stepped out. Maya's eyes widened. "They found us." Elara turned. "Run!" Maya hissed. They sprinted down the pier, footsteps pounding against wet wood. A gunshot cracked through the fog. Elara's heart stuttered. She ducked behind a crate, breath ragged. Maya crouched beside her, blood seeping through her sleeve. "I told you," Maya whispered, voice trembling. "They don't bury the truth. They burn it." Elara pressed a shaking hand over the wound. "Hold still. We need an ambulance." "No!" Maya grabbed her wrist. "Go. Find the file. Langford's private vault, floor 72. The key's in his ring. Don't trust anyone. Stop talking. Promise me." Maya gasped, eyes glazing. "Expose him." Then she slumped, motionless. Elara froze, rain soaking her hair, the metallic tang of blood mixing with salt air. Somewhere behind the fog, sirens wailed. She stood, every muscle shaking, and ran. If you're still watching this, remember, one secret can change a life, but the wrong one can end it. Hit the like button if you're hooked. Drop a comment if you think you'd keep that promise, and subscribe, because this story's about to turn darker than anyone expects. By evening, every news channel blared the same headline. Investigative journalist Maya Singh found dead in pier accident. Accident? The word scraped her throat raw. Elara sat on her couch, watching the broadcast in silence. Her hands were still stained with Maya's blood. Her phone lit up again. Miles Corrigan. She almost threw it away, then answered. "Doctor," he said evenly, "Mr. Langford heard about your unfortunate encounter this morning. He's concerned for your safety." "My safety?" she spat. "Your men shot her." A pause. Then, "I think you misunderstand Ravenshore, Dr. Monroe. People die here all the time. It's rarely anyone's fault. You're monsters. We're practical. And you should be too. Pack your things. There'll be a driver outside your clinic at 6. We can still make this right." She ended the call, shaking. Outside, thunder cracked again, echoing off the glass towers. She looked down at her trembling hands, the same hands that saved Victor Langford's life, and wondered if she'd just signed her own death certificate instead. Somewhere across the city, Victor stood at his penthouse window, watching lightning crawl along the horizon. Miles approached quietly behind him. "She knows," Miles said. Victor didn't turn. "Then let's make sure she understands what that costs." The storm swallowed the skyline. The rain hadn't stopped by the time the city bled into night again. Ravenshore shimmered under sheets of water, every puddle a distorted mirror of the truth Elara was trying to outrun. She hadn't been home since morning. Her bag was stuffed with files, her scrubs still streaked with Maya's blood, and her heart wouldn't stop pounding. Every instinct screamed to run, to disappear, but Maya's last words anchored her. "Find the file, floor 72, key in his ring." She pulled into a dim alley near Langford Tower and stared at the monolith rising above the skyline. It looked less like an office and more like a monument to secrets. She wiped her face, adjusted her hood, and whispered to herself, "You started this. Finish it." The main lobby was closed, security tight. But she remembered a staff entrance she'd used during Victor's recovery week, a side door near the loading bay. She slipped through the shadows, using her hospital badge to trigger the proximity sensor. The lock beeped once, then opened. Inside, the building was eerily silent. Elevators slept behind steel doors. A single security camera blinked red in the corner, sweeping in lazy arcs. Elara ducked behind a pillar and waited for its rotation before pressing the emergency elevator access button. The doors opened with a whisper. She exhaled shakily and pressed 72. The elevator began its ascent, soft hum, dim lights, and the faint reflection of her own terrified face. With each passing floor, she felt the weight of something closing in. By the time it stopped, her palms were slick with sweat. The doors slid open to a corridor of glass and shadow. The floor looked unfinished, bare wires, crates, and blackout curtains covering half the windows. She moved quietly, her footsteps barely audible. Then she saw it. A massive steel door at the end of the hall. No handles, just a biometric scanner. She approached, scanning the frame. The panel flickered. Access. Restricted. Authorized users only. Her pulse raced. Maya had said the keys in his ring. She fished through her pocket and pulled out the single item she'd taken after Victor's collapse, his gold signet ring. She pressed it against the sensor. The scanner beeped twice, then turned green. The door unlocked with a heavy clunk. Inside was a private archive, dimly lit, lined with filing cabinets and digital vaults. Cold air blew from vents above, and the faint scent of antiseptic lingered. On the center desk sat a folder marked Cortazan, Internal Memorandum, Classified. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Dozens of photographs spilled out. Children in hospital beds, unmarked graves, test data falsified by scientists under corporate signatures. A final document stopped her breath entirely. Clinical Trial Batch 7, Subject Mortality Report. Under Region, Kandara Province, East Africa. Under Casualties, 31. Under Supervising Medical Officer, Dr. Helen Monroe. Her mother's name. Elara stumbled back, clutching the paper. Her mother hadn't just witnessed Cortazan's trials, she'd been part of them, and if the report was true, she might have been framed to cover for the deaths. A soft voice broke the silence. You were always bound to find it. Elara spun around. Victor Langford stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between sadness and inevitability. You lied to me, she whispered. You killed her. He stepped closer. No, Elara. I saved her. She froze. She was meant to die with the others, he continued, voice calm, almost gentle. But she discovered what my company was doing, and she tried to stop it. I couldn't let her go public, not then, so I gave her a chance. A new identity. A new life. Elara's chest heaved. That's not true. My mother died in front of me. Victor's gaze softened. You saw what you were meant to see. Why tell me this now? She demanded. Because you saved my life, he said, and that means you deserve the truth before you decide whether to destroy me. He stepped forward, extending a small flash drive. Everything you found here is real. But what's on this? It's the whole story. The governments that funded the trials. The agencies that buried the bodies. If you leak this, you don't just end my company, you ignite a war. She stared at him, shaking. You expect me to protect you? I expect you to survive, he said quietly. Behind him, the elevator chimed again. Miles Corrigan stepped out, gun in hand, eyes cold. I told you this would happen, he muttered. Victor turned. Miles, don't. But Miles didn't hesitate. The gunshot echoed through the steel walls. Victor staggered, blood blooming across his chest, shock spreading through his eyes. Elara screamed. Miles raised the weapon again. He was weak. You're not. Hand me the drive, Doctor. She dropped to her knees beside Victor, pressing her hands to the wound, déjà vu tearing through her like fire. Don't move. Stay with me. He grabbed her wrist, his voice fading. Run! Elara! Run! His hand went limp. Miles cocked the gun again, but Elara was already up, sprinting down the hall. Bullets shattered glass as she dove behind a file cabinet, clutching the flash drive. She crawled through an access vent, the sound of boots closing in behind her. Nowhere to go, Doctor? Miles's voice echoed. You think truth saves people? It doesn't. It ruins them. She pushed through the vent's end and dropped into a maintenance shaft, landing hard on her shoulder. Pain flared white-hot, but adrenaline dragged her to her feet. She slammed her palm against the emergency ladder and began climbing down, floor by floor, heartbeat thundering louder than the storm outside. Miles's shouts grew distant, swallowed by the hum of machinery and wind. By the time she reached the ground level, her lungs burned. She staggered through a side door, out into the rain-slick street. A car screeched to a halt beside her. The driver's window rolled down. It was Rosa. Elara! She shouted. Get in! Elara dove into the seat, gasping. What the hell happened? Rosa demanded, flooring the accelerator. They killed him, Elara whispered. Victor, He tried to warn me. Rosa's knuckles whitened around the wheel. Who's after you? Everyone, Elara said, and I have something they'll kill for. She held up the flash drive. Rosa glanced at it, eyes wide. What's on it? The truth. Rosa drove faster. Then we need to hide you. Now they turned down an old industrial road, heading toward the outskirts of the city where the docks stretched into blackness. Rain pounded harder. Thunder rolled. Elara clutched the flash drive to her chest and looked out the window, tears mixing with the storm. She thought of her mother, of Maya, of Victor dying twice in her hands. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if saving him had been mercy or a curse. If you're still watching this, don't blink now. Because when someone's life is built on lies, saving them might mean killing everything that's left of your own. Hit that like button if you'd keep driving into the dark for the truth, and subscribe because the ending isn't survival, it's reckoning. The car headlights carved through mist until a figure appeared ahead, standing in the middle of the road. Rosa slammed the brakes. The car skidded, tires screaming. Elara's eyes widened. Miles Corrigan stood in the rain, drenched, a pistol glinting in his hand. End of the road, he called, voice eerily calm. Hand it over, doctor. It's not worth dying for. Elara's hand trembled on the door handle. Rosa whispered, We can run him down. No, Elara said softly. He wants me alive. He needs what I have. Then what do we do? Elara stared ahead, a calm fury washing over her. We finish what Victor started. And then she opened the door. Rain hammered the asphalt as Elara stepped out of the car, clutching the flash drive so tightly her knuckles turned white. Miles stood motionless, his pistol steady, the glow from the headlights painting him in cold light. Throw it over, he said. You're not built for this kind of war, Doctor. Rosa leaned out the window, shouting, You shoot her, and you'll never find what's on it. Miles's mouth twitched. Oh, I already know what's on it. The difference is, I can erase it. Elara took a step forward. Why, Miles? What's the point of protecting a corpse of a company? Victor's dead. Victor was a symptom, he said coldly. I'm the cure. Something flickered in his eyes. Conviction. Maybe madness. You think this started with Langford? Number. Governments, banks, defense contractors, they all fed on courtesan. You leak that drive, you don't end corruption, you destabilize nations. Elara's voice broke. Then why did Maya die? Why did my mother? Because they couldn't handle the truth, he said simply, and neither can you. She took another step. Try me. For a moment, silence, just the hiss of rain between them. Then Miles raised the gun. Rosa floored the accelerator. The tires screamed. The car lurched forward. Miles fired, once, twice, the shots slicing through the storm. The windshield shattered as Rosa jerked the wheel, spinning the vehicle sideways. The front bumper clipped Miles, sending him sprawling across the wet pavement. The car skidded to a stop, smoke curling from the tires. Go! Rosa yelled, bleeding from her arm. Run, Elara! But Elara didn't run. She grabbed the gun Miles had dropped and aimed it at him as he struggled to his knees, coughing. This is for Maya, she said, trembling. Miles laughed hoarsely. You think killing me fixes anything? They'll just replace me. You'll become the next headline, the next corpse. I'm not killing you, she said. I'm making sure you live with what you did. She threw the gun into a puddle and turned to Rosa. Drive. They sped through the outskirts, the skyline fading into darkness behind them. Elara's pulse thundered. The flash drive felt heavier than metal, like a living heart in her hands. But she knew now what Victor meant. The data wasn't just evidence. It was a weapon. One upload, and the entire structure of power could collapse, with millions caught in the fallout. She stared at the flash drive. How many people die before truth matters? She whispered. Rosa's eyes flicked toward her. You can't save everyone. But you can save yourself? Elara shook her head. Not anymore. They pulled into an abandoned marina. Rusted boats creaked against the docks. Elara got out, wind whipping her hair. Across the water, the city pulsed faintly through the storm, distant, indifferent. She walked to the edge, holding the drive over the black waves. Then a voice behind her. "Don't!" She turned sharply. Victor Langford stood there, soaked, pale, but alive. For a heartbeat, she thought she was hallucinating. "Victor?" He nodded weakly, leaning against a post. Miles never learned to aim for the heart. Lucky me, Elara's knees almost buckled. You're supposed to be dead? Not yet." He coughed, crimson streaking his sleeve. "But close enough." Rosa stepped back, stunned. "You're bleeding." "Doesn't matter," he said, eyes fixed on Elara. "You have it, don't you?" She held up the flash drive. "Why did you lie?" "About my mother. About everything." He closed his eyes. "Because truth isn't mercy, Elara. It's punishment. And I couldn't let you live with what she did." Her voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" "Your mother didn't fight the trials," he said softly. "She approved them. She believed in courtesan more than anyone, until the deaths began. Then she tried to hide it, to rewrite reports, bury the data. But I couldn't let her. I told her the world had to know what science costs. She panicked. The seizures weren't an accident. She took her own life that night." Elara staggered back. No, you're lying." "She was brilliant," Victor said, tears mixing with rain. "But brilliance can blind." Elara's throat closed. All those years of grief, all those nights replaying her mother's death, it shattered into something colder, heavier. Betrayal. "You used her," she whispered. "I loved her," he said quietly. "In my own way. And I tried to save what was left of her legacy by saving you." She stared at him, shaking. "You don't get to call it love." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But I can still make it right." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a detonator, small and blinking. Behind him, the ground near the dock shimmered faintly, motion sensors wired to explosives. "This place is where we kept the trial shipment. I planned to destroy it years ago. Never did. Tonight, I finish it." Elara's eyes widened. "Victor, no." He pressed the detonator. The explosion tore through the marina with a roar. Flames leapt into the storm, splintering boats and sending shockwaves across the water. The blast threw Elara backward. She hit the dock hard, her head spinning, smoke filling her lungs. When the world steadied, the fire was dying. Victor was gone. Only the flash drive remained, half melted, flickering faintly in the rain beside her. She picked it up with trembling fingers, staring at its broken light. Then she looked at Rosa, who was crying silently. "He destroyed it." Rosa shook her head. "No, you still have something he didn't." Elara frowned. "What?" "Your voice." Elara stared at the horizon. The faint silhouette of the city where truth was currency and silence was survival. By morning, the news broke. Langford Biotech CEO found dead in explosion at private facility. No mention of Elara, no mention of Maya. Just another tragedy filed under corporate incident. Weeks passed. The storm ended. Ravenshore moved on. But Elara didn't. She resigned from the hospital, sold her apartment, and left the city. Somewhere inland, she opened a small clinic. No logos, no sponsors, no lies. People came from everywhere, word of mouth carrying her story in whispers. Sometimes at night, she'd hear the rain and remember the pier, the blood, the look in Victor's eyes. And she'd wonder if mercy had ever been the right choice. On her clinic wall hung a single photograph, her mother smiling in front of the Kandara clinic, years before everything went wrong. Below it, a quote scribbled in Elara's handwriting, "Truth heals only what courage allows." One evening, Rosa visited with a brown envelope. "This came for you," she said. Inside was a single note, no signature, just one sentence written in Victor's hand. "The truth doesn't die, it waits." Beneath it, a small memory card taped to the paper. Elara stared at it, her breath catching. It was a backup. The drive had survived. She looked up at Rosa. "If I release this, they'll come again." Rosa nodded. "And if you don't, nothing changes." Elara walked to the window. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm was returning. She smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. Then let them come. She placed the memory card into her laptop. The screen glowed blue. Files opened. Images, reports, everything Victor tried to erase. She clicked upload. The progress bar crawled upward. At 98%, the lights flickered. Her reflection in the screen blurred, and for a moment she could almost see her mother's face behind hers, smiling sadly. "Tell the truth," Elara whispered. The bar hit 100%. Upload complete. If you're still watching this, remember, some people run from truth, and some burn their lives to bring it into the light. If that hit you, hit that like button. Drop a comment with what you'd have done, and subscribe. Because stories like this aren't just fiction, they're warnings.